Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Healing Beyond Borders, the World Pediatrics podcast, where we share stories of impact, collaboration, and the incredible work being done to bring advanced pediatric healthcare to children who need it most. Back in May, World Pediatrics, an orthopedic spine traveling team, went to St. Vincent and the Grenadines, led by Dr. Matt Cage and Dr. Yashar Javadan. The surgeons and specialists came together from Hawaii, California, and Texas to provide care for children with complex spine conditions. Now, this team was made possible thanks to the support of Globus Medical. They're the global leader in musculoskeletal solutions. Globus develops innovative spinal implants, instruments, and surgical technologies that help surgeons restore mobility and transform lives. Their partnership with World Pediatrics means not only providing critical equipment, but also joining our teams shoulder to shoulder in the operating room. Today, we're going to speak with Miranda Davis and Neil Ross about their experiences. We've got Miranda Davis, who is a program coordinator for the Caribbean at World Pediatrics, and Neil Ross, who's an instrument representative with Globus Medical, who traveled with the team in May. Miranda, hello. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
What in the world do you do to prepare for a project of this scope? What goes into mobilizing a team of this scale for this project?
Yeah, so I think when people think of medical nonprofits such as ours, they think that medical volunteers sign up, they travel, they do the necessary work, and then they come back. While that is true, there are a lot of behind-the-scenes plans and preparations that take place to make sure everything goes smoothly, efficiently. So to start out, we make sure the lead surgeon has a full team complement. This includes an anesthesiologist, nurses, therapists, instrument reps such as Neil, and making sure that they have that on their schedule. Obviously, they have super busy schedules. Making sure the hospital that we are traveling to in the region is available and ready for us to work alongside them. Also, we have to register them with the medical council. So since a lot of our volunteers travel year after year, we want to make sure we're participating in their healthcare system, not just going and coming back. So that's a really important aspect of our teams. Also, we have a long patient list, so our team generates a specific patient list for each team, and our country reps have to go in and look at which patients are available and ready to travel, follow up with any necessary x-rays, blood work, anything that the surgeon may request, and we also book the team's flights, their accommodations, and any other logistics that have to go into a team traveling to a different country. And it wouldn't be possible without all of the program staff that I have on my team. So it's great. Lastly, but not least, the biggest part of my job and my role here at World Pediatrics is going to be the supply aspect. So as a nonprofit, we try to gather discounted or, low-cost supplies for our team, so we're not depleting any of the hospital's resources in the Caribbean. So gathering those supplies, communicating with the team, the surgeon, the nurses, the instrument reps, to see what supplies are needed for each specific team, gathering them, and then having to make all of the necessary requirements for international shipping, customs, all of that jazz. So it's a lot of work, but seeing that team from start to finish is definitely the best part, is seeing the full circle.
I love how mindful World Pediatrics is wherever they go, the impact of what they're doing wherever they go. I mean, it's very abbreviated to say it's way more than going in and coming out. I know that you absolutely
100%.
care about what's happening ahead of time while you're there, what happens after you leave, and I know that you're very, very careful about the impact, which is great. How many trips have you done in the last year to the Caribbean itself?
So last year we had about 45 teams to the Caribbean. 7 of those were orthopedic and 4 were orthopedic spine. So I manage the orthopedic teams with conjunction with some of my other colleagues, but I'm specific to the orthopedic teams just to keep it more streamlined since there is so much that goes into it. So 4 of those were spine teams, one of them being a diagnostic team where the surgeon goes to make sure and diagnose early signs of scoliosis in the region.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That is incredible. My hip has been giving me trouble, so when we're done, you and I need to talk. And I understand that the orthopedics teams can be some of the toughest to plan. What makes it so difficult for those logistics?
Yeah, definitely. I think just the complexity of these surgeries that we're doing and our surgeons are completing and the teams are implementing, they're just a lot more supplies that have to go into it, hardware, nails, screws, implants that, to straighten a spine, to fix a hip, as you said. So just because of that, that's automatically going to make these teams more challenging and more time consuming. But in my experience, all of that more rewarding. And I think Neil can kind of speak to that and how the partnership with Globus really helps with these teams really happen and help the children that we're in the Caribbean seeing.
What does that volume look like? We're talking trunks, right? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's like my last scoliosis team. I think it was the one with Neil back in May. It was probably about 20 to 25 boxes of supplies, about 10 of them being the Globus Medical implants that really what make this trip possible. So it's a lot of supplies and a lot of communication with Neil and his team and the nurses, surgeons, just making sure we have all of the correct supplies for these intricate orthopedic surgeries.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
And I imagine when you open the trunk, you have everything clearly marked. I imagine the little spaces and they're marked. Neil, tell us more about Globus Medical. And then I would love to know how you yourself got involved as being a rep, how you got involved with World Pediatrics.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. I think you did a great introduction regarding Globus Medical being a musculoskeletal company that designs and manufactures and sells, medical devices used in the treatment of many conditions, but on this particular trip and those that I participated in were specific to scoliosis. But coming to it, I was still part of the organization that Globus Medical merged with 2 years ago, Nuvasive, which was another spine company. It started around the same time as Globus. And so Nuvasive Spine Foundation and Globus Cares kind of merged into one during the merger within the last 2 years. I first developed an interest in going just honestly by seeing some of my peers travel to some of the countries that don't have regular access to healthcare and would just hear the stories of their lives being changed by participating in a mission trip and the impact that it had on the patients and their families. So I'd say the seed was probably planted 15 or so years ago, but it took a while. It took I don't know what finally got me. Honestly, I think there was a period in time a few years ago where I was my family and I attend mass in church, and there was the idea of donating your time and giving where you can give, and I realized there was a void there, and that what exactly do I have to offer? How can I help be of service to people in my life? And that I recalled that seed that had been planted earlier about mission trips, medical mission trips in particular, and thought it was the time to go. And so I contacted our team internally, who put me in touch with Miranda's team, and we were off and running and learning about everything that it entails. And have now done 2 mission trips over the last 3 years.
That's incredible. So I would think, we have here that you are a rep for the medical equipment company. And I guess my first thought would be, whether that's sales, that you represent the equipment. What is your role like when you're there? What is your knowledge about the equipment itself? So what is your role while you're there? How do you serve as help knowing the equipment? Are you in the ORs? What is it like day to day for you there as a rep for the equipment itself?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let me tell you about it because it's we get worked pretty well when we're there. I so the full story. I've been in this industry about 20 years. I stepped back from the sales role about 5 years ago to lead a team of sales reps across a few different states. And so I'm still in the operating room with some regularity, but not to the same extent that I used to be. And so that was another factor as far as making the trip possible at this point in time, and that I had the time to get away from the field, as we call it, a little bit. Um, and so there was an element of, okay, I've had years of experience in being a part of guiding teams through these procedures. I don't want to lose that. And getting to that point, I should say, was through very extensive training that Globus Medical provides. Of about 20 people on my team that are all in various stages of their development and training. And I'm thinking right now of some of the people who've been here even just only a year, who have spent months and months time on didactic, on hands-on, cadaver labs. They'll go 2 weeks at a time sometimes for a hands-on training at our global headquarters in Audubon, Pennsylvania. It is exhaustive, the training, to where, we can take somebody who has no medical experience, no med school, anything like that, and within a year to 2 years, you can confuse that person for a medical student, and how they conduct themselves, the questions that they ask, the terminology that they use. They're in no way nearly as trained as a medical student or as a resident. So I want a resident or a attending physician. I want to make that distinction, but they have definitely earned a place in the operating room and can be an asset in helping to guide a surgical tech, a surgeon, a radiology tech, with whatever they need to help ensure that a surgery goes smoothly.
That is incredible. I think I would have taken that for granted.
Yeah.
That the equipment rep would come with so much knowledge and benefit.
Very knowledgeable for sure.
Yeah, I love that we were having
We
this
often hear
conversation to
that.
know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
That
incredible.
wow, that role doesn't even exist. People don't know that there's this person in the room who truly is an asset to what's going on, and they think of the surgeon first and foremost, of course, the nurses, of course, the anesthesiologist. They think of all of those people, and even the scrub technician. But this other person in the room who's there that can really have a positive impact, especially as we're well into an age now where the medical devices that are being used are far more complicated and advanced than at any other time in history. So it's critical to have that person involved. And I think I missed one part of your question there, where when I first signed up, I didn't realize the level of activity that would be required of me in the room there. I thought I will of course do whatever is necessary, but it was a lot more than I had appreciated was necessary, which is why I found it that much more rewarding, and I enjoyed it as much as I did, because there's so much to do. Um, so I'll take a
That's
breath there.
incredible. And I
Yeah.
understand this last time when you went in May, it was a really tricky case, or it was a very unusual
Yeah. So
specific case.
we typically, our surgeons and teams go down, in this case, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and they travel and do about 8 cases because, like I said before, the cases are long, they're complex. So 8 cases during the surgical week. And in May, when we were there, there was an 18-year-old Vincentian patient who presented with scoliosis of the cervical spine or the neck, and had mentioned that he was having issues with numbness and tingling in his hands. Now, for those non-medical, most scoliosis cases that our teams encounter and see, and most common cases in general of scoliosis, are going to affect the thoracic spine. So this was a pretty rare case for one of our teams to see. And with that being said, myself and Neil and the nurses and everyone who's involved in the supplies for each team, we had gathered all of these supplies, and Neil and his team at Globus had gathered the correct implants for thoracic and lumbar scoliosis to fix that. And we didn't have the necessary supply for this specific case, but we made it work. Neil and I and Dr. Cage and the entire team kind of came together and figured out a game plan, and got this patient the care and the surgery that he well deserved. and it was a success. So yeah, very exciting.
Did you MacGyver something?
Neil, Neil, you can speak more
How
on
did
that.
Globus step in? Did Neil become MacGyver?
Yeah. Well, I think one thing that should be said is when we spend months, Miranda and her team and my team, determining what is
Yes.
needed for every particular trip, and given that there's one pathology that we're treating, or that being scoliosis, or typically adolescent idiopathic scoliosis.
Yes.
As while they are incredibly complex procedures, the equipment we tend to use is it's pretty consistent from trip to trip, but we will tweak it every single time and
Mm-hmm.
talk about particular devices we're using or quantities of those devices. But I believe they get shipped at least 1 month prior to a trip,
Yes.
maybe more,
Yeah.
because of the customs process. So we'll carry a few things loose on us if in between that, when it was shipped and when we travel, something else comes up. But unlike treating these pathologies in the United States, where if something changes the day before, we're able to be a little more nimble. You don't really have that flexibility when you're in the Caribbean
Right.
or in these other destinations for these trips. Yeah. So in order to treat this patient, something was going to have to come from the States, and the option of shipping it just did not exist. So it would have to be hand carried. And at this point in time, I mean, it should be said, I think we were wrapping up in the operating room for the day, and it was getting close to evening. And the person, if we were to find one, would have to be leaving the next morning. So
Mm-hmm.
we were really under the gun to get a solution and get it quickly. But I was confident that I know the drive and of my colleagues at Globus, and how driven they are, how responsible they are, how much they care. And it took one phone call to a friend of mine that I called in the Miami region, because I knew that's where the flight would have to take off from. And he answered the phone. I said, I have a big ask. I need somebody to get on a plane tomorrow morning at 10 a.m., fly to the Caribbean, and stick around to help us take care of this patient that's otherwise not going to be treated. And that was it. They had somebody ready to go. And that person flew the very next morning, got us what we needed, and stuck around and helped us conduct that procedure.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Let me ask, I have so many follow-up questions. I've never asked this. We'll get to some other things. I've never asked, do you guys get to do, you mentioned what sparked it was you used the phrase not in the field. I never have asked in all these podcasts, do you get to do anything outside of the work there? Do you get to see the area at all? Or is it all work? And I think maybe it's because the Caribbean, I think for the first time I was like, oh, do you actually get to enjoy where you go?
Yeah, for each, I'll speak on behalf of our entire programs, because it varies beyond, each team, because each team is a little bit different. But a lot of our teams are going and putting in a lot of hours, a lot of effort. So not to discredit how much effort they're putting in at the hospital. The clinic day is immediately the day that the day after they arrive in country, and then followed by usually 4 pretty intensive long surgical days. The afternoons, you see the water in the ocean. I think I saw a video of Neil jumping off a cliff when he was there in the evening time, but for the most part, it is pretty intensive with the time that they're putting in for these patients, and taking notes afterwards, and following up in the post-operative care, and the anesthesiologist checks on the patient's pre-op and post-op, and all the work that we all do to make sure it's a seamless trip. But Neil, if you guys were there, and obviously I was there too, but just seeing a team and being a part of a team, I'm sure is a little bit different experience.
Yeah, I think the days are long. We are truly exhausted. But that said, I have spine surgeons are they operate on, not that it's even less sleep. They just seem trained by their training, by virtue of residency and fellowship, and to under even extreme circumstances, are able to still perform at a high level. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is they still will say, hey, at 4:30 a.m. before this really busy day, let's meet to go for a 6 mile run
Oh,
or a swim. So honestly, the mornings consisted of kind of a boot camp type of exercise session to get everybody kind of awake and blood pumping amongst a big part of the group. Um, so we fitted in and managed to see different parts of the area. And then there was an enormous amount of camaraderie over dinner after
Yeah.
each surgical day, where we would discuss the surgeries that we did, the efficiencies that we uncovered on that particular day, and how to make sure we have them the next day, discuss what we could have done better. And it's very cool to see when you work with the same people doing something similar day by day by day, how you get better at it, you get faster at it. And so just each day there was more successful than the last, I'd say. And that carries over from mission trip to mission trip to mission trip. And I see that in Miranda's team as well. And just that it goes more smoothly anytime I'm able to see what they're doing. It just gets better and better. So I applaud them in their efforts.
and then how does that carry over once you get back home? How does doing such fulfilling work like this spill over when you come back to your family?
I think that's a great question. I'm so grateful for the opportunity, and I try to express that to everybody that I get back, that it's easy in to lose sight sometimes when we get incredibly busy about the patient being the beginning and end of everything we do, not just on a mission trip, but every day. I'm here at Globus Medical, right? I have there's probably more than a dozen surgeries my team is carrying out right now, and every one of those patients matters and has a family who wants to make sure that their surgery goes well. And in the in the rigor of it all, you can forget that. And these mission trips completely make sure that I'm reminded of the patient. And so I think that's the biggest thing that I've been grateful for. And I have to say, and I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I've had spine surgery myself as well a few years ago, and that was another point in time where it resonated for me in a way that it hadn't before. How life changing that a spine surgery is on a patient at that point in their life and forever. My life was incredibly transformed by my own experience. And so going on these mission trips just puts me right back on that table again. And I'm able to some small degree experience what they've experienced. And so my heart is filled up by going on these trips. And that's why I plan to continue to go on them.
And how about you, Miranda? When you come home, how long does that glow last? How does it translate to your work life and home life?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Neil said, I think I became a part of World Pediatrics, and chose it as my career for now, because I really feel like we get that healthcare access here in the U.S., and I believe that we should have that access and care in these regions, the low resource regions that we do our work in. So when I come back, and I don't get to travel on every trip, but traveling on trips like the one I was with Neil and the team, just getting to see the work that they do is just inspiring. I put a lot of work beforehand to make sure it goes smoothly, but they're the ones doing the work that week, and seeing all of the efforts and all of the supplies that Neil had to go through. And, like you said, the long days that they had to have, it just really puts it into perspective. Like, this is why we do the work that we do. And this is why I put in all those effort and hours before the team actually travels. So when I return, yeah, it's just continuing those efforts and honestly planning the next team with that viewpoint. And I think my colleagues at World Pediatrics would agree with me, and that's why we do the work that we do, is to provide this pediatric care in these regions that don't normally get it.
It's so important. I sit in a comfy chair, and every time I do a podcast episode, I am filled with gratitude, not only when I talk to you as the facilitators, but especially when I talk to the patients. Those episodes are incredible. And I just think, where does that strength come from? Where does that resource of tenacity come from when I'm boohooing about whatever my first world problem is? And you see these amazing children who, you know, they dig deep in their faith, or they just have this innate optimism, and they just go, and I just think, oh, I am so ungrateful. I really need to just realign my values for a minute, but they are so inspiring and so incredible. And when you do think about the kind of care that we have here, and when you do realize that it's not available, that is really motivating to do what you do.
For sure.
Why are the partnerships with World Pediatrics so important for making travel teams possible? World Pediatrics in general, because we love them. And
our partnerships that we have at World Pediatrics with companies such as Globus are super important and incredible. You know, we would not be able to be doing these intricate orthopedic surgeries like we do without them. So having, you know, the relationship with Globus and being able to communicate with Neil and his team and the other representatives that come on our trips, they're just super important to us because they just don't have these implants and the resources to be doing these complex orthopedic surgeries. So we're super grateful to continue having this relationship with them, to continue the, you know, life-changing care that we provide for the kids in the Caribbean.
Let's keep that network strong. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course.
Thank you. Thank you, Neil.
No, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Best of luck on your next adventures, your next trips,
Thank
and
you.
next assignments. Thank you so much. The work that you do brings hope and healing to children everywhere, and we couldn't be more grateful. Thank you so much. For those of you watching and listening, if you'd like to learn more about Globus Medical, visit globusmedical.com. And as always, if you want to support the work and good deeds of World Pediatrics and the children that we serve, visit worldpediatrics.org. Together, we can heal more children in less time with greater impact. Stay tuned for our next episode. I'm Reese Williams. Thank you so much.